Tensions remain high as efforts to broker peace in the Russia-Ukraine war face significant hurdles. President Trump has pointed to Vladimir Putin's personal dislike of Ukrainian President Vlodamir Zelensky as a key reason for delays in arranging a meeting between the two leaders. Trump said because he doesn't like him, when asked why Putin has avoided face-to-face talks with Zelensky. Meanwhile, U.S. envoy Keith Kellogg held talks in Kyiv with Zelensky and Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko. Discussions focused on creating a security framework, procuring arms and drones, and addressing Russia's illegal extraction of critical minerals in occupied territories. Zelensky also urged the U.S. to help return Ukrainian children abducted to Russia. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov dismissed the possibility of a leaders' summit, saying the agenda is not ready and questioning Zelensky's legitimacy to sign any agreements. Amid these diplomatic challenges, Ukraine's Air Force reported a wave of 104 Russian drones hitting the country overnight. Kyiv continues to push for more long-range weapons and seeks about $1 billion per month to purchase U.S. defense systems. President Trump has signaled he will decide in the coming weeks whether to impose new sanctions or tariffs on Russia if talks fail to progress. President Donald Trump and South Korean President Lee Jae-myung met at the White House yesterday for their first in-person summit. The meeting lasted about 140 minutes and covered security, trade, and North Korea. Trump expressed his hope to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un later this year, saying he has very good relationships with Kim. President Lee urged the United States to take a leading role in establishing peace on the Korean Peninsula. The leaders also discussed the July trade agreement, which lowered tariffs to 15% and included a $150 billion shipbuilding initiative called MASCA. Trump said the United States is considering contracts with Korean-built shipyards in America, but noted these plans will take time to develop. On defense, Trump proposed U.S. ownership of land hosting American military bases in South Korea. He also raised the issue of cost sharing, but declined to discuss changes to the 28,500 troops stationed there. The summit comes after tensions flared earlier this month over South Korean raids tied to domestic investigations. Trump criticized these actions before the meeting, but later called them a misunderstanding. Working-level talks are expected to follow on trade, shipbuilding, and defense arrangements. President Trump has nominated Sergio Gore as the new U.S. ambassador to India. Gore will also serve as a special envoy for South Asia, a role that's never been assigned to this post before. The announcement was made publicly over the weekend, and Indian officials, including External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, said they first learned about it through Trump's social media post. This dual mandate allows Gore to begin regional work immediately as special envoy, even though his ambassadorship requires months of Senate confirmation. Critics, like former Indian Foreign Secretary Kanwal Sibal, warn this could blur distinctions between India and Pakistan, a sensitive issue in the region. Gore is a close confidant of Trump, but has limited diplomatic or South Asia policy experience. Steve Bannon, Trump's former strategist, said Gore's direct access to the president could be an advantage, noting Gore is one of the few with walk-in privileges to Trump. The appointment comes during strained U.S.-India relations. Trump recently imposed 50% tariffs on Indian goods, and trade talks have stalled. Analysts are divided on whether Gore's proximity to Trump will help ease tensions or complicate matters further. Observers also see this move as part of a U.S. strategy to expand its influence in Central Asia, an area of growing competition with China and Russia. However, overlapping roles within the U.S. State Department could create challenges for policy coordination. Brazil has refused to approve Israel's nominee for ambassador, Gali Dagan. The Israeli Foreign Ministry says this decision marks another escalation in tensions between the two countries. Relations have been downgraded, and Israel has withdrawn its request to appoint Dagan, leaving diplomacy at a lower level. This diplomatic rift follows months of criticism from Brazil over Israel's actions in Gaza. Israeli officials said the situation worsened when Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva compared Israel's operations in Gaza to Nazi atrocities. Lula called the actions genocide and said they targeted women and children. Israel responded by declaring Lula persona non grata and summoning Brazil's ambassador earlier this year. Brazil later recalled its own ambassador to Israel and in July announced its withdrawal from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. The refusal to approve Dagan as ambassador is the latest development in this ongoing dispute. Gali Dagan previously served as Israel's ambassador to Colombia. Israel's outgoing envoy to Brazil completed his term last week, leaving the diplomatic post vacant. Both nations now face a significant cooling of ties as relations remain strained over the fallout from the October 7th Israel-Hamas conflict. France has summoned the U.S. ambassador, Charles Kushner, over accusations he made about rising anti-Semitism in the country. France's foreign ministry called his claims unacceptable and said they violated international rules against interfering in another nation's affairs. Kushner has been ordered to appear at the ministry in Paris on Monday. In a public letter to French President Emmanuel Macron, Kushner said France hasn't done enough to combat a rise in anti-Semitic incidents since October 7, 2023. He also argued that Macron's plan to recognize a Palestinian state at the United Nations this September could embolden extremists. The U.S. State Department has backed Kushner's comments, marking a rare public disagreement between the two close allies. France says its authorities are fully mobilized against anti-Semitism and cited official figures showing 1,570 anti-Semitic acts. The French government strongly rejected Kushner's claims, stating they undermine trust between allies. The dispute comes as Macron faces criticism from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has also opposed France's planned recognition of Palestine. Netanyahu argued that such steps could fuel violence and endanger Jewish communities. This diplomatic clash highlights deeper tensions over Middle East policy and how nations address the rise of anti-Semitism.